Mr. Cratides?
Καλησπέρα σας. Είστε ο κύριος Latimer? Εγώ είμαι ο Paul Cratides.
My name is Latimer. I've come to meet you, Mr. Cratides.
Έχω ένα γράμμα από την αδελφή μου, Σοφία.
Yes, just come this way, Mr. Cratides. We have a carriage waiting.
During my long and intimate acquaintance with Sherlock Holmes, I'd never heard him referred to his relations, and hardly ever to his own early life. Because of this reticence, I sometimes found myself regarding him as an isolated phenomenon, as deficient in human sympathy as he was preeminent in intelligence. I'd come to believe that he was an orphan with no relatives living. But one day, to my very great surprise, he began to talk to me about his family.
My singular gift for observation and deduction may have come from my grandmother, who was a sister of Vernet, the French artist. Your art in the blood is liable to take the strangest forms. For example, my brother, Mycroft.
Your brother? I didn't know you had a brother.
Oh, yes. And I can assure you that he possesses a far greater faculty for observation and deduction than I do.
Holmes, I know that you are a modest man.
My dear Watson, I cannot agree with those that rank modesty among the virtues. To the logician, everything should be seen exactly as it is. And to underestimate oneself is as much a departure from the truth as to exaggerate one's own ability. What I have just told you about my brother is the exact and literal truth.
Well, naturally, I don't doubt your word. But if there is another man in England with such singular powers, how is it that neither the police nor the public have ever heard of him, let alone myself?
Ah, he is very well known in his own circles.
Where then?
The Diogenes Club. It is the oddest club in London, and my brother one of the oddest men. I suppose you wish to meet him.
Well, of course I do. Even if it's just to prove that he exists.
Then you shall. This afternoon. He has come across the most singular problem, which he thinks might interest me.
But why does Mycroft not use his great powers for detective work?
If the art of the detective began and ended in reasoning from an armchair, my brother would be the greatest criminal agent that ever lived. What is to me a means of livelihood is to him the merest hobby of a dilettante. But he has no ambition and no energy.
What is his profession, then?
He has an extraordinary faculty for figures. He audits the books for some of the government departments.
But what are the qualifications for the Diogenes Club?
Shyness and misanthropy. My brother is one of the founder members. It contains the most unsociable and unclubbable men in town who speak not a word and shun even the merest glance. Now, let us enter.
Yes, but
Not a word.
Holmes, have you...
We can talk in here.
Well, thank goodness.
Look at those two men, Sherlock. What do you make of them?
The billiard marker and the other.
Precisely. What do you make of the other?
An old soldier, I perceive.
And very recently discharged.
Served in India, I see.
And a non-commissioned officer.
Royal Artillery, I fancy.
And a widower.
With a child.
Children, my dear boy. Children. Mycroft Holmes. Glad to meet you, Dr. Watson. I hear of Sherlock everywhere since you became a chronicler.
Well, thank you.
For anyone who wishes to study mankind, this is the spot.
But surely you were taking things a little too far just now.
It is not hard to say, Watson, that a man of that bearing and expression of authority and sun-baked skin as a soldier is more than a private and is not long from India.
But he's not long since left the service as shown by his still wearing his ammunition boots, as they call them.
He has not the cavalry stride. Yet he wore his hat on one side, as is shown by the lighter skin on one side of his brow. His weight is against him being a sapper. He is in the artillery.
Then, of course, his complete mourning shows that he's lost someone very dear. The fact that he's doing his own shopping looks as though it was his wife. He's been buying things for children, you see. There is a rattle, which shows that one of them is very, very young. The fact that he has a picture book under his arm shows there is another child. Ah, Mr. Melas. Come in, sir. These are my friends. This is Dr. Watson. And this is my younger brother, Sherlock.
You're Mr. Sherlock Holmes?
I asked Mr. Melas to step across. He lodges on the first floor above me, and I thought you'd be interested in his story. He's the reason why I asked you to call today. Mr. Melas, he came to me, well, in perplexity. But I think I shall ask Mr. Melas to tell his own very remarkable experiences in his own fashion.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. For many years, I have been the chief Greek interpreter in London. I do not think that the police believe my story. On my word, I do not. Just because they have never heard of it before, they think that such a thing cannot be. But I know that I shall never be easy in my mind until I know what has become of my poor man with a sticking plaster upon his face.
Mr. Melas, please sit down.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. I prefer to stand.
Watson. I am all attention.
All this happened only 2 days ago, on Monday night. I am Greek by extraction and earn my living as an interpreter. It often happens that I am sent for at strange hours by foreigners who get into difficulties, or by travelers who arrive late and wish my services.
Mr. Molass?
Yes?
I apologize for this intrusion, but I need the services of an interpreter immediately. My name is Latimer.
Immediately?
I wouldn't insist unless it were urgent, but a Greek friend of mine has just arrived in this country on business, and unfortunately he speaks nothing but his own tongue. I likewise, sir. Mr. Molass, please. My carriage is waiting outside.
How far away?
Only to Kensington. I'm sorry to have to cut off your view, Mr. Molass, but the fact is I have no intention that you should see the place to which we are driving. It might possibly be inconvenient to me if you were ever able to find your way there again.
This is very extraordinary conduct, Mr. Latimer. You must be aware that what you're doing is quite illegal.
It is somewhat of a liberty, no doubt, but we'll make it up to you.
For nearly 2 hours we drove, without my having the least idea as to where I was.